All right, that took me an hour to explain almost. Well, I guess maybe the first 15, 20 minutes I was still talking about battery ignition, but Cooper summed it up in 5 seconds, which is magneto is...
It's a magnetic field that creates a magnetic field that creates a magnetic field.
There you go. It's a magnetic field that creates a magnetic field that creates a magnetic field.
Once you put it that way.
It's like I should have just went with that and been done. We could have went home early.
Yeah.
All right, this is the graph that's out of your book. I guess one of the nice things about this specific graph is it's a little easier than some of the other books that get like really in depth. But to take a look at it, now we have the static flux curve, which is what? It is just the...
It's your magnets.
Just the magnetic circuit without being influenced by anything else. Breaker timing. I don't know what that is. Then we have the primary current, which would have looked better superimposed on this, but you can see that it maxes out
Right after.
right about how many degrees past neutral?
10.
About 10 degrees past neutral. So it builds up. And why does it fall off like that?
Because the breaker point's open.
Because the breaker point's open. So, and this just represents now that superimposed, you have the resultant flux coming through. So, which is what I kind of explained there.
What's that little like?
What?
Yeah, like
This right here?
Cycle.
That's the dissipation of the spark. So there's a lot more going on, and they're kind enough to represent that. You get some capacitance with the leads and all kinds of stuff, and some other things are happening in there, and that's why we use resistor plugs, because you don't want this resulting in a bunch of after fires. You just want it to fire once and be done.
oh, so
So-
you create like a resistance and then
They are, so that's why we use resistor plugs. It doesn't continue to fire for a while. I brought this in mostly because I thought it'd be funny to have in here, because I know you guys and you'll shock yourselves, and that's just fun to me.
You promise?
All right, so these have fine wire plugs. These are your $130 plugs on here.
So we
Yeah.
can sell this?
damn, do those fit in
I
the
could try
nice
6 people at once.
Yeah, I don't think I'd want to put them in my airplane, but it's got an on-off switch, which is also called the what?
ignition lead.
P lead,
P lead.
primary lead. So we flip it on. Is it now open or closed?
So now it's
It's open. It's not grounding itself. And counterclockwise rotation when viewed from the...
Drive.
Okay, now I'm going to show you. So counterclockwise. You can hear it snapping away up there. All right, so this is turning counterclockwise, not the way the clock on the wall works. Okay, also called left hand. Okay, I'm going to teach you a trick.
but you're using your right hand.
This is the distributor gear, and the distributor with the ignition harness on it. If this one just fired, and it's a left-hand rotating magneto, when viewed from the drive end, when you turn it around, which one's going to fire next?
The one
Right. So left.
The one to the left as well. Why? Because it actually went backwards. So it's to my right. It's turning this way to me, but it's left to you. So it's an easy way to remember. When you're looking at it, if it's a left-hand magneto and I say, this one just fired, which one's next? The left-hand magneto goes to the left. This goes to the left. This goes to the left.
So you read the distributor from the non-drive side.
Well, I just made that up. This is my thing. So just turn it around and look at it. So it's left when you're looking at it. So
Oh, yeah,
got it?
yeah. I'm understanding the internal theory of it.
Pointer arcing.
Are they?
Yeah.
So we're gonna need new what? They do arc a little bit, by the way.
Oh, really?
Alright.
Yeah, just a tiny bit.
Tiny bit. Okay, you can shock yourself with this all you like. I'm okay with that.
We all signed the waiver, right?
All right, so that is the basic way a magneto works. Questions on that?
It gets more complicated?
No, that's it. It's how it works.
I could probably build one of those.
Okay, but there's some problems inherent with the design. Just trying to turn the page. Doesn't want to go. All right. The problem with these magnetos, number one, as I said before, they don't have advanced or retards on them. You put them on, that's where they go. So we will get into this later, and when you get into the engine class starting in January, you do 4 weeks of recip, then you do 4 weeks of turbine, then you do 8 weeks of this magnetos, fuel injection, carburetor, stuff like that. And during that 8-week period of time, you will install a slick on an engine, you'll install a Bendix on an engine, then you install another slick on it. You're going to be putting mags on like crazy. So we'll talk about this when we get there. But it's a very simple process to time a magneto to an engine. Number one, you put the engine where the number one cylinder is supposed to fire, which is, if you kind of been paying attention, where?
Stamped on the engine.
TDC.
Top dead
We're
center.
starting at TDC.
Not where it's supposed to run. Where it's supposed to run.
25 degrees before.
Oh, you're talking about intake stroke. Go ahead.
Compression stroke, so 25,
Or compression.
roughly, depending on the engine, 25 degrees before top dead center on the compression stroke. It's because it comes up to top dead center, it's going to then be the power stroke. So we put the engine where it's supposed to fire when it's running
On the number one cylinder.
on the number one cylinder.
Oh, that. Oh, now. Oh, I just have.
So I actually take out a spark plug, put my finger in the spark plug hole, turn the propeller in the direction of rotation until it wants to blow my thumb off. Go, oh, well, that's compression stroke. Then we bring it up to however many degrees we're supposed to have it. However many degrees we're supposed to have it is exact by the manufacturer. So Lycoming tends to be always 25 degrees. Continental's pretty much all over the place. You have the 65, I don't remember 65s. I think it's 28 for the next side. It might be 28. I forget my engine because I even just did it. So yeah, they're about 28. So it just depends. You got to look it up. Where do you look it up? Type certificate data sheet, maintenance manual, data plate. So we'll get into that. So anyway, the magneto is a fixed piece of equipment that does not have advance or retard. So what happens if I try and start the engine with it in 28 or 25 degrees before top dead to center? That's what I said. Kickback. Okay, so we have two problems. One, it could kick back. Two, these magnetos don't really work at slow speeds. So they have to be spun up rather well. Bendix, they're hot. They will, oh, there's my magnets. They will start an engine without an impulse coupling. They're pretty dang good. Slick, nah, I mean, they're fine. But they're not as good as Bendix by a long shot when it comes to that. They have to be spun a lot faster. So, Slick actually, it's your, as Phil would say, gee whiz information. They're actually Eisman, and they had a funny. This is just kind of funny if you care. If you don't care, don't pay attention. Let me see, pen. They used to have a logo, and the logo. This was the world, SeaWorld to be honest. And then on top of it, they had some sort of like, eagle. I can't draw an eagle, so eagle. So it had an eagle. So it was Eisman. So it had an eagle sitting on top of the world. It's pretty cool. And then Slick bought them out, and they had to change it. And so the cheapest way to change the logo was to just take a grinder and grind off everything until it looked like that, and then they just wrote Slick. I'm not making that up. If you look at the logo for a Slick, it's a ball with a thing on it. It's like, well, why is it? Well, how'd you come up with that? Well, that's how they come up with that. They used to be Eisman, and then Slick bought them, and they were literally throwaway magnetos. They were non-serviceable. You would use them for 500 hours, take them off, and throw them in the garbage can. They had no core value, no nothing. You just buy new ones.
Did the price reflect that?
I wasn't an owner back then, so I don't remember. In my shop, we overhauled the heck out of Bendix because they're so much better and so much hotter. But then Slick started becoming serviceable, and then it got to a point where, okay, now you can get parts for them, you can service them, you can overhaul them. And then the two of them got together somehow and decided, hey, I know what we can do. We can make the parts we'll write a manual that says when you have to replace a part, you have to replace everything. and we'll make them so expensive that everybody's just going to want to send them in and buy new ones anyway. So great marketing plan. Anyway, so the problem is you can't start an engine very well on a magneto off the starter because the engine isn't turning fast enough to turn the magneto fast enough to create a spark to make it work. So they come up with this thing. This is called an impulse coupling. And what the impulse coupling does is it does two things. It makes the spark hot and it makes it late. So hot and late. Reminds me of a girl I used to date.
Doesn't it also act as the drive coupling?
Well, yeah, because you have to have something there to drive it. But no, you don't need it as a drive coupling. You're complicating things. If you're going to have an impulse coupling, you got to attach it to something. So yes, it is the drive coupling, but you don't need it. Therefore, it doesn't have to be a drive coupling. That didn't make sense.
I've seen it. I swear I've seen it.
You're making it sound like without the impulse coupling, you could never drive it. No, it's absolutely simple. All Lycomings only run one impulse on the left-hand mag. The right side is non-impulsed. My aircraft uses double impulse. Yours, I think, also uses double impulse.
Is there a, on the side that doesn't use an impulse coupling, is there a different
gear?
A different P? Okay, so
Here's one right here, non-impulsed.
Oh, it's a different gear.
So it depends on the application. So like this particular one would be, it takes a gear. The gear's just not on there. The gear's going to go on here, and it's going to have some little ears. So the gear fits on this one. Mine actually has longer, these little guys right here, has longer ones that fit between two rubber drives inside the engine. So they're all different kinds. But the point I want to make, the impulse coupling does two things. It makes a spark hot and late. And so what it does, I think I showed you the other day, as the engine is turning over real slow, it has these drive dogs right here, and you can see them right here. So it's like a leg. Look at that as a leg. Here's your leg. So that would be your foot, and so this would be your heel, and that's the toe. And that's what they're called. So, let me get shocked. So as it turns slow, these little drive dogs, the newer ones, are on springs, and they're going to flip out, and it's going to catch on the stop pin. And so as the engine continues to turn, the drive shaft, the magnet, stays put. See, it's not moving. But the engine is moving. So that means the engine's moving, the piston is coming up towards top dead center, but this isn't doing anything until it gets to a certain point, and then it has to catch up. There's a spring in there that makes it catch up. So right there, it spun super fast at top dead center. So it made it late, and it spun super fast for a brief second and sparked it.
It's
So
spun faster than the camshaft or the shaft.
it spun faster than the engine, just for a second. And it sparked off.
Popped a TC.
Yep.
So what's the hot spec part of it?
Well, it made it hot. It turned fast.
Oh, okay.
Right? So, see, I just turned real slow. How fast is it going to turn a second? That was pretty fast. You couldn't even see it. So it's what it does in the engine. So if you listen to somebody who has an impulse magneto when they're starting their aircraft, you'll hear it tick, 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 tick. It's pretty loud. And then also you hear it when they shut down. Pull the power off, pull the mixture back, kill the fuel, and as the prop is spinning down, you'll hear a snap, 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 because it's slowing down again. So once the engine gets up to operating speed, the centrifugal forces this right here, this part here, is forced out to this, which makes the toe tuck in
nice.
so it doesn't catch anymore. And that's a really important point, because I can tell you right now, a lot of students seem to think that this thing just sits there and snaps away the whole time it's flying. That would not work. It would probably explode after about a couple minutes. I don't know if it could handle that at the speeds we're running. So again, once the engine starts, the minute it starts, I mean, as soon as it fires off, you're going from an RPM of, I don't know what a starter
50
RPM.
or 60.
Yeah, I was going to say 50, 60 to 100 to over 500. Engines are going to idle from 550 and 600 RPM or higher. So as soon as it goes past 400, boom, this thing is tucked away down in here. No more snappy snap. And you're going to see that very shortly as Evan finishes his magneto. We put on the test stand. We're going to test it two ways. One, we're going to test it by the book that says that it has to spark and fire consistently at its coming in speed. And the coming in speed is the lowest speed at which the magneto will fire all of its plugs consistently. And so we're going to see what the coming in speed. For Bendix, it's got to be no more than 150 RPM. For Slick, I think it's 250. It's another 100 higher. Then we'll put the impulse coupling on, and we'll turn it. You're going to go snap, snap, snap. And obviously, it's going to fire at even 1 RPM because it's going to go around really slow. But what's going to happen?
The actual magnet will be spinning at enough speed.
The dogs are going to catch, and it's going to snap it every time. So you can spin at 1 RPM, and you're going to get all 4 to fire because that's what the impulse coupling does. And then we'll speed it up and watch impulse coupling. It sounds pretty bad when it's transitioning. It kind of catches, kind of does it, kind of catches, kind of doesn't. So I try to get through that zone pretty fast.
It sounds like a typewriter.
It's a typewriter with a mad monkey on it. And so we just go right past it, and then you'll hear it run without the impulse.
It's wear
Yeah.
down pretty fast.
So what, I'm looking at what unlocks the leg from the catch.
Centrifugal.
Okay, it's complicated, but what happens is so the toe is going to stick out and get caught on the stop pin, okay?
Yeah.
Then this part right here, black is the wrong color. This part right here is going to just keep turning until it gets to the ramp right here. And so when this little ramp hits that little thing right there, it forces this in.
Okay.
It forces this out and that in.
Got it.
There are two different types of cam assemblies. This is a 3-piece unit. There's a spring, a cam assembly, and the body. This one has got weird little squares here just because of the way I stole it from the internet. Because that's what I do. There we go. This is the old style, riveted. This is the new style, snap ring style. These have a tendency to come apart in the engine, and it's really a bad thing.
The rivet ones come apart in the engine?
And even these to an extent. Yeah. So magnetos, you're supposed to not go really past 500 hours on a magneto. So every 500 hours, you do a 500-hour inspection, which is just shy of calling it an overhaul. I mean, you might as well call it an overhaul at that point.
What's an overhaul interval?
Or you just did an overhaul on yours, right?
Yeah.
So look at the difference. You know, it's replacing.
At the end of the day.
It's replacing like everything, but
No, I meant intervals.
intervals, overhaul intervals. You're supposed to overhaul them. Typically, it matches the engine overhaul. So when you overhaul the engine, you overhaul the accessories.
Oh, well, 2,000 hours then.
Well, I've only got my engine's like a lot less than that.
Is it?
But every 500 hours, I have slicks. You just take them off, you throw them away, you buy new ones, and then they last for approximately 100 hours, and you put a new coil in. Such is life. All right, what else have I got here? Do anything, so I'll have to keep writing. All right, that's where we're at. So I guess we're going to write stuff now. Let's see. The rest of the stuff is about timing magnetos. Don't do that. Don't do
I got a
that.
question.
Oh, okay. We'll circle around to this in just a little bit. But if you don't have the impulse coupling magnetos, it's weird that that's not working, then you're going to have what's called a shower of sparks, or a starting vibrator system, which we will cover in the next day or two. And I'll show you how that works. Okay, you had a question.
Oh, I was just gonna say, if I have to rebuild my mags, can
Yes.
I do it here? And
Absolutely not. Unequivocally, no.
I don't understand.
Is the official answer from.
Can I bring a motor
I
in?
must not know.
We are forbidden to work on any aircraft engines, parts, components, airworthiness within a school environment.
Well, see, you need to have
All right, magneto.
Sign you up, so.
Magneto ignition. Almost all recip engines. Almost. All recip. Recip rotating. I guess I could have wrote it out, but then I paused. No, I can't. Aircraft engines. Use a magneto. And not just a magneto, I should say a magneto system. So first of all, what's recip mean? Reciprocating. Reciprocating means back and forth. What's going back and forth? Pistons. We're talking about piston-driven aircraft engines, not turbine engines, because turbine engines don't go back and forth. If they're going back and forth, they're broken. They go roundy round. All right, so let's talk about the almost all and how many don't anymore use magneto system. All Rotax, so now your Rotax, which is almost all your light sports, don't have magnetos like this. They do have more like a motorcycle. So motorcycles use a magneto, as far as I know. All the motorcycles I ever owned did. It's just internal. So you have a flywheel that's going around. You take a case off, you'll see there's a flywheel going around in there, and that flywheel has magnets on it. And
the stator?
no, stator stays, the has to rotate. So you have a little flywheel inside the motorcycle.
Like
You
the stator,
can't-
like
You can't see it.
It's like a little bowl.
I'm trying to tell the stator cover with the windings in it and everything.
Okay, yeah, that'd be the stator stays though. That's where it's getting its electricity.
But
So that's the
there's-
alternator.
There's a magnet going around.
Yeah. No,
I'm,
no,
trying, I'm like trying to think. I don't know where that's in my motorcycle.
it's inside the engine.
Okay.
It's all right, and so okay,
So it's fine.
yeah.
Rip Vulcan apart.
Talking about lawnmowers are the same way. On the lawnmowers, like old Briggs & Stratton, you have a flywheel on top, and it's got little fins on it that helps cool it. But on that flywheel, you would see there's two magnets on it, and there's a coil that sits. And I used to have to set them, and they'd say use a piece of cellophane from a cigarette wrapper. Well, I was in the Navy, and everybody had cigarette wrappers. Buy your cigarette wrapper, and you put the cellophane. You push the coil assembly right up to it, but those coil assemblies sat right on there, and they had the pole shoes right on it that would go right up next to the flywheel that's going around, and that's how it worked. And so there's your magneto system right there, and then it would have points and breakers also in there. So if you have a stator, you also have a rotor, which we'll get into. So where was I going? So yeah, so like the Rotax have that. Now the IRMCs, is that what it is? Yeah, I keep forgetting the IS. They have the, Tony said they have battery ignition systems on them. Those things are really cool. And now we're getting into the electronic ignition, like I said, the Surefly, stuff like that. But other than that, all legacy aircraft, your Lycomings, your Continentals, they came out and that was everything, unless it was a Franklin, which is just another version of all that stuff. All of those engines, they had two magnetos on them. Every single one. I mean, it's just, it was a given fact. Came out of the factory, you got two mags. I mean, you know, what are the exceptions? There were none. Unless it was some sort of weird home-built thing that ran a snowmobile motor back in the day. You know, then it's like, I don't know what it, ran on. So, well, yeah, experimental, but we don't even care. So we have that. So, okay, there's several different types of magneto systems. Different types. Well, we have the high tension. High is all capitalized for no particular reason. High tension. And that is where high voltage leaves the magneto. Now called just the mag, so I can save time. Let's see, world. Oops, I didn't want to do that. Leaves the mag, and goes directly to the spark plug. Which would be pretty much everything that's made now. That's just what we have now. We have the high tensions. So high voltage is created in the magneto. It leaves out the distributor's part of the magneto.
Okay.
So
Leaves out the ignition wire.
it goes out the ignition wire.
What do you call them again? Something leads? What do you call them?
You can have high tension leads, spark plug leads,
I said the thing earlier.
leads, ignition leads.
Plug wire.
Plug,
No.
for some reason, I don't think we call them plug wires. If I knew what you're talking about, I'd be like, yeah, plug wires, ignition lead, and to the spark plug. So high tension, right? Then let me see. Within the high tension systems, we have the single mag, which is dual mags. And we have the dual mag, which is a single mag. It's funny when it's spoke. The only engine that used this particular mag was the Lycoming, a couple of Lycomings. And they have the D in the designator, like an IO360, A1B6D, which is a very common one. But we'll get more into this, but it has a single shaft. The only thing that it shares is a case, impulse coupling, and rotating magnet. Otherwise, it's got, these don't belong here. These are the capacitors. They go in the case, but the case is not here because the case contains the ignition leads. So you got to ground these to something, and they just happen to fit inside the vent holes really nice. So that's why it looks funny. Otherwise, these would be just, it wouldn't look so, they'd be all kind of self-contained. But anyway, this particular model, so dual everything. So 2 different rotors, 2 different caps, 2 different breakers, 2 different, does share a cam, but everything else is dual. This killed people. And the reason why is this is a D2000. The case is made out of magnesium. And what happened is that when it would heat up, it would tend to shrink up around the rotating magnet and stop the rotating magnet from working. And when you lose the one and only rotating magnet you've got, it shuts down. So the D2000s, there was an airworthiness directive that came out that said they have to be immediately retired. I mean, there was no like, it was gone. And so they made the D3000, which is the exact same thing, but with an aluminum case instead of the magnesium case.
So what is the reason of using that? Is it just easier to time the entire thing instead of having to do
It was Lycoming's thing, and I wasn't there when they built it. But if you take a look at the back of a A1B6D motor, you can see that it's pretty busy back there, although it didn't have to be. So normally you'd have a hole right here for magneto, which does, and then you'd have another hole right here for magneto, but this time they decided to put the oil filter adapter there. And so they got the oil filter adapter, magneto hole, a vacuum pump drive, the prop governor drive, and the fuel pump. And so they're kind of running out of room, although everybody else seemed to figure it out. And so did Lycoming on their other engines that just used the same IO360 A1B6,
they just wanted to use that?
you know, without it. So, yeah. I think they're just trying to do the integral oil filter system, but normally the oil filter goes down here anyway. I don't know just why they decided to do that. Their idea.
To be fair, sir, the issue with the magnesium is not the issue I thought they would have with magnesium.
That'd be fire.
Yeah.
Too.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, cool, it's lightweight, but
But the expansion, expanding contracts are 2 different rates then.
Yeah. All right, single mag, dual mags. Then we have, and of course you would find this on antiques that are trying to maintain their antiqueness, the low tension system. Low tension system, where low voltage leaves the magneto must be transformed. Must be transformed near the plug, near the spark plug. By a coil.
Is that like the whole point of the magneto?
Well, you're talking about some antique engines, and the problem is technology wasn't such that the wires were good enough to handle the high tension. So, you know, if you have a wire that's not capable of handling 30-some thousand volts, what it's going to do is it's going to break through and it's going to find its way out of the wire into what's around it. So instead of being insulated from the metal, it's going and sparking the spark plug, it'll spark across to here. It'll have a very short life and break down against that. So they didn't have the technology to handle these wires, or to handle the voltage, so they had to do that. So
We're building
low
planes.
tension all around the ignition harness, and we're talking about radial engines, which had a harness that goes around the front of it and off into the cylinders, and so then you had to do that. So
And then you change it for each cylinder, each plug had to have its own coil. pretty
so
much?
each plug had to have its own coil. So if I had a 9-cylinder radial engine, how many coils would I need?
18.
Try again. 18. So you'd have 18. So every cylinder must have 2 coils. Every spark
Seems
plug.
crazy.
How antique is antique when you talk about that?
How old's your plane?
26? I don't have that. I don't have a radio.
They were building planes but couldn't have
It's
insulated
definitely
wires.
pre-war stuff.
Pre-war stuff?
Which
Yeah.
war?
The book kind of mentions primarily for higher altitude aircraft.
Yeah, then we really start breaking down up there. Every spark plug needs its own coil. So that's 2 per cylinder. That's-
Is this for only low tension systems?
yes. 2 per cylinder.
So is a car technically a low tension system then?
I know, because now it's got a coil in every one of them.
Yeah.
Modern.
No.
that like that.
Oh, technically, would it be?
Oh, coil over plug car.
Well,
I guess so.
coil packs, yeah.
Yeah.
You have coil packs on each plug.
That's what we said. Technically, would it be? All right. So, modern aircraft, do they have coils next to each cylinder?
No.
How many coils does my aircraft have?
Two.
2. One for the right mag, one for the left mag.
No.
All right. You're trying to piss me off. It's working.
Would it be 4? The primary coil and the secondary coil in each mag?
You and him just leave. I don't know. Guys are ganging up on me. So, all
That
aircraft.
was a genuine question. I was.
Oh, okay. What, it was a genuine question?
Yeah, would it be?
Coil assembly.
Okay. Okay.
Let's do coil assemblies. All aircraft, with maybe an exception that I have no knowledge of, all aircraft that I can think of use dual ignition. Use dual ignition, which is either going to be 2 single mags or 1 dual mag. All right, use dual ignition, which means that dual ignition is 2 spark plugs per cylinder. Two spark plugs per cylinder. Why do we do that?
Redundancy.
All right, so safety. Safety with redundancy. And more efficient burn. Which we'll talk about a little later in a different class. All right, and then we got into our operating theory. Operating theory. There are, very good, there are how many circuits?
3.
3 circuits in a magneto. These 3 circuits are
Magnetic.
magnetic circuit, the primary circuit, and the
Secondary.
secondary.
And the third dairy.
Uh-oh.
Tertiary.
Called tertiary.
Okay, but what about,
How far gone would a mag be for a tertiary circuit?
that would be like a magnetic earth issue.
All right, principle of operation is similar to battery ignition, with the magneto is self-contained and does not need a battery. I don't need to write that. Oh, I can. Similar in operation to battery ignition. But, yeah, magneto is self-contained. And does not use a battery. All right, let's talk about each circuit. Oh, here's the bad news. You know, once I've dispelled the information here in lecture, you're fully responsible to know it for your orals. Does not use a battery. All right. Magnetic circuit. What does that consist of?
A
Magnet.
rotating
Permanent
magnet.
magnet.
Pole
All right.
shoes, pole extensions. Rubber. That shit's been troubling me for like a week, to be honest with you.
Consists of a rotating magnet. Can be 2, 4, 6, or even an 8-pole magnet. Never seen one,
Why stop at 8?
because you're running out of room. Even an 8-pole magnet.
Would that be for like a more engine with more cylinders?
That D2000 there's a 4-pole, pretty sure.
What about for like a 24 radial?
They get a little different. I built a couple of them for radials, and I don't remember anymore what the magnet was. It just, okay, so how many poles you do is going to depend on how fast you spin the magnet. That's all it is. So if you have fewer poles, you got to spin it faster. And the more poles you add, the slower you're going to spin it. So it's just how the manufacturer wants to do it. Rotor is made from, and this is a fun word, yep, let's read that up, is made from hey, it did Alnico. Actually, it should spell it like this: ALNICO. Took me a while to figure that one out.
Nickel copper.
Yeah, you got it. And you know how long it took? Somebody actually, it's time. Almost embarrassed to say, but hey, I don't know if that's The student pointed out, goes, hey, wait a minute. Those are all the letters for aluminum. Well, it's aluminum alloy. Iron. Nickel. And cobalt. Knowing what you know about magnetic properties, how would you describe said rotor?
That they don't
It's
take.
retentive.
Yeah, I was trying to say that.
Very high. What?
Retentivity.
Retentivity. Very high retentivity, which means,
Very low permeability.
yeah, very low permeability. It doesn't like to be messed with. Once it's there, it just wants to be that way.
So is the rotor part? The rotor you're talking about? Are you talking about when you say the rotor? Is that the magnetic part of the rotor?
Well,
or
if we
is that
kind of
the-
look at the whole thing, the shafts are made out of iron. The magnets have bits of aluminum in it. And then I don't know how they put the nickel cobalt in there. That's probably part. The magnet something. I don't know what each part is, but
So is it when you charge that magnet? You probably don't want to charge the whole thing, do you? You probably want to charge just the magnets.
yep. You do not want to charge. You don't want the rotor. I'm sorry. You don't want the shafts to be magnetized.
So is it got some type of alloy that's non-magnetizable or something like that?
It would have to be a soft iron to get rid of it. And I don't think it's. They seem kind of soft. They're definitely not hardened steel. I can tell that. So possibly yes.
I mean, my threads and my finger all chewed up. So
It's because it's not real hard.
Yeah.
So it's kind of soft. Yeah.
You said high retentivity, low permeability?
Yeah.
I'm just curious how you get just the magnets to get magnetized and the rest of the rotor.
Different materials.
Yeah, non-ferrous.
Magic.
All right. What's next on the list? Rotating magnet.
Shoes.
Yeah, pull shoe.
Pole shoes. Dole shoes is almost exactly correct, but
Bananas.
yes, bananas. We're making batteries again. Bring on the Hydrox. Pole shoes are made of laminated sections of soft iron. And why are they made of laminated sections of soft iron? Why is it not made of one piece of soft
They
iron?
love to be charged up and they don't retain.
Laminations prevent eddy currents. What's an eddy current? Everybody knows what an eddy current is, so I'm just going to move on. Okay, so an eddy current is kind of what it sounds like.
Eddie.
Like it comes backwards or something like that? Like, or like it cycles back? I forgot.
So if we have a piece of metal and we're trying to put magnetism through it, and it
Change pen.
Oh, he's
And it shrinks.
Change pen.
Yep, that's it. Oh, change pen. There we go. That's how you draw a period. Okay, so just get a big square like that. I'll remember that for next time. Oh, look at that. Yeah, that's, wait, why can't you do a circle? Maybe if I hold it. Oh!
Look at that.
Life just got.
Diagrams just got so much better.
I know.
You held the button or something?
Yeah, I waited. Okay.
Now we
So
get
if we're trying to put, I don't know what it's going to, eddy currents in there. So an eddy current is actually like a little current that kind of forms itself like a little tornado in there. And so if you have little tornado currents, no, I've never used that word before, built up and moving in there, that's going to cause resistance. And so we're going to get resistance to the lines of flux wanting to come in opposition. So we don't want that. So the laminations, and in case you don't know what a lamination is, laminations where you just take a whole bunch of something and you just stack them on top of each other and then glue them together until you get one piece.
Plywood.
So plywood, yes. Change pin. Laminations prevent eddy currents or something else. These laminations have high permeability, which means what?
They're able to take in a magnetic current or magnetic field.
Easily magnetized, super easy to magnetize. They want it as easy as absolutely metallically possible, because you want the lines of flux to freely flow without resistance back and forth. So I mean, super high permeability, but we want, yeah, super low retentivity. Yeah, sometimes when I'm spelling retentivity, I get lost halfway through the word. I'm like, what was that again? It's like spelling banana.
Or restaurant. Yeah.
Retentivity. There we go. High permeability and low retentivity. All right, so after the pole shoes, we have
Full shoe extensions.
pole shoe extensions, which nobody has mentioned yet in an oral. So pole shoe extensions.
Everyone's gonna say
Clicking
it.
and go effect.
Pole shoe extensions. And that's really, it's, you know, the pole shoes technically, just the way they're shaped, it's fine. It's just,
They're high tops.
they're high tops, yeah. They're high it's fine with that, so. But it technically, it allows, oops, we're almost done, huh? Allows lines of flux to be transferred from the pole shoes to the coil core. Allows lines of flux to be transferred to the iron core of the coil.
If just the extensions or just the shoes needed to be replaced for whatever
Nope.
reason,
They're built into the case.
so then the whole case.
Yep, it's real easy to replace them. Buy a new case. They're in there.
So realistically, they're all one thing.
And last thing is the
Coil.
coil core. Coil core. Made of the same material as the pole shoes and completes the magnetic flux circuit. Made of same material as pole shoes and, let's see, what was I going to say? Completes the magnetic circuit. All right, thank you for your time.